Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome along everyone this morning to our webinar looking at the partnership between Fonterra and Kaipara Moana Remediation. My name's Ben, and joining us this morning will be George and some of his team from Fonterra. He'll introduce them in a minute. First, a bit of housekeeping. Mics off, please, unless you're presenting, which will be myself and George, who'll rejoin us in a second. There we go. And questions can be either saved till the end, or you can pop them in the chat, and there's a few people floating around who may be able to answer them. If they're super specific about a project or something, one of the Fonterra team might jump in, or someone from KMR, but feel free to pop a question in the chat and we'll answer it, or we can save them to the end and have a discussion. To start off with, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Kaipara Moana remediation and our area of work, and I'll have an update on our progress to date at, just before we wrap things up after George has finished speaking. But this is the catchment boundary covering 2 regions, 7 major river systems, 3,500 sub-catchments across 9 planting eco-districts. Today's webinar is focusing about the relationship between KMR and Fonterra. KMR co-funds remediation projects to reduce sedimentation. What we co-fund is the protection of waterways through things like stock exclusion, native planting, and protection of wetlands, and the better management of highly erodible land, which can include native planting or regeneration, non-pine exotic afforestation, or silver pasture space planting with poplars. It comes with a lot of benefits, improved local water quality, enhancing farm and land resilience, with side benefits of adding value to farm systems. And our sediment reduction plans themselves can be validated for those wanting to explore carbon credits or in the future biodiversity credits. Now, to give us a bit more of an insight into the FarmSource/Fonterra system and the team, I'll hand over now to George. George, good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right, Ben and everyone? Cool. Yeah, sorry, a bit nervous. Nice way to start with some technical difficulties. I have a laptop that has this uncanny ability to just freeze whenever, and often it freezes really important times. So yeah, sorry about that. But kia ora, my name is George Kruger. I am a sustainable dairying advisor as part of the Northland Fonterra or FarmSource team. And yeah, just been asked today to present a little bit around our partnership with the Kaipara Moana Remediation Program. It's been going on for about 3 years, and it's a very good, fruitful, beneficial, valuable partnership for both of us. And yeah, I've put together some slides here just to introduce our team, talk about, I guess, some of the genesis of our partnership, the work that we've been doing, and yeah, bit of background as to how both our goals or our targets, they complement each other very, very well, which is why we've got very fruitful partnership. So firstly, this is our first slide here, is just our local Northland team. We've got myself, George. I'm in the middle there, the bottom photo. I think, is there a little, you can't, yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's me. Had hair back then. I was probably look a bit trimmer as well. So that was a few years ago. Yeah, a bit of a team. So our team, all of us, we come with various skills and backgrounds. Kind of complements the farm environment plan work that we do. These farm environment plans, or as they'll transition to freshwater farm plans, they cover quite a range of topics in the environmental space. And so, as a team to develop our plans, we also need to come with a wide variety, or within our team have a wide variety of skills and backgrounds as well. So just that little table there, that's me, and some of the skills or the backgrounds that I have. SME is it's a Fonterra term. We call it a SME, or a subject matter expert. So it's just carrying on some of those acronyms from the work that we do. We also have Ben. If you can point to Ben there, he's dude with the beard on the right, on the left. That's Benji. Yeah, he's in our team. Again, comes with definitely a biodiversity, ecology background, and he's quite engaged in catchment work, particularly with whitebait connection and around Ruakaka and that area. We have Nikita. She's between me and Mike Mitchell there in the photo. Yeah, and yeah, she's she's cool. She's got come from a farming background, into farm systems, greenhouse gas efficiency, ag sci background as well. So, and then we have Bridget. Bridget's actually she was employed later before that photo was taken, so she's sitting right up there in the centre there. That's Bridget. Definitely, she spent a lot of time in the KMR space and come from a cropping, nutrient, and agrochemical background through horticulture prior to coming to Fonterra. And then we have Helen. Everyone knows Helen. She's got a wealth of experience, and she's worn a number of hats and done a lot of work in Northland. And she's got the Nestle SME. She's a Nestle subject matter expert for us. We're getting into a lot of work with some of our key customers, and she's got a big portfolio helping with our Nestle work. She's also, very involved in greenhouse gases space and a lot of government policy stuff. And just widely experienced. So she's valuable, very valuable in our team. And lastly, we have Mike Mitchell. Everyone kind of knows Mike. He's been around for a while, part of the old land management team at NRC. And comes with the skill sets that he has, particularly around land management and soil conservation, also farming background. And then either side of Bridget there, we have our regional managers. So they're not directly part of our environmental team, but they know a lot about the work that we do, heavily involved, particularly Mike Borry, part of the kind of, partnership governance. He helped build the partnership along with the KMR lead team there. So, quite involved. And then we've got Ryan on the other side. So, and just on the side there to the right is a map, and that map kind of shows the spread of our farms and the dots relating to we all have patches. Our farms, our areas are divided up into patches. And then I've got that shadow over the map, which kind of shows the Kaipara Moana Catchment. And, I'm the blue dots, so a lot of my work shoots up into the far north. I have a small area in the KMR area that's around Waiatu Road and up Peka Road. And we've got Mike Mitchell. He's the green half his catchment. He shoots into Kaikoura around Wamamaku, Kawakawa. So that's the outside of the catchment. But then he's got the swamp and Hikarangi and Maroa up the Mangaka here. Then we got Helen. She's the dark blue dot. She's got pretty much around Ruawai, Poto. We have what's that place? Kokapu and Poroti. She's got a little patch right in the middle. Then you got Bridget, kind of sweeps right across the centre there, around Dargaville, Kaihu, Tangawahine, Tangataroria. And lastly, they got a combined area, which is Benji and Nikita, and they kind of do South Whangarei right down to South Head. So, part of their farms, a lot of their farms come into the catchment, and then just those on the coast around Waipu, Pakari, they miss. But by and large, a large chunk of our work, particularly the other SDAs, bar myself, have a lot of involvement and, a lot of work in the Kaipara Harbour catchment. That's that part. So, just talking about our partnership with KMR in the early stages, back in early 2021, we started to explore a partnership opportunity, and KMR was coming together, or they had formed, and we were pretty much busy right in the middle of developing farm environment plans. We started as at Fonterra about 2018, developing farm environment plans, and by about 2021, we were right in the thick of it. We had at Fonterra, we had a target. We have a target. It's still there. For all our farms to have a farm environment plan by 2025. So that was a key driver for us in the work that we've been doing since around 2028. And that target and getting into farm environment plans was it's kind of like a real good or beneficial transition. A lot of my work I started back in 2013 at Fonterra. And at that time, a lot of our work was reactionary work. We were playing a bit of catch up in the environmental space on our dairy farms. A lot of the work that we were working, a lot of the work that we were doing were, part of our shed assessments. We assess all our farms every year, and if a farmer we identified an issue, an opportunity, we would get on farm for that. A lot of them were around our council visits. If a farmer had a council visit that didn't go very well, we would get involved there. And so again, a lot of our work was reactionary, and to our farmers' credit, over the last 15 or so years, even 20 years, a lot of work, a lot of upgrades, a lot of change to management infrastructure changes have occurred over that period of time, and to a point where we dealt to a lot of the things that we needed to kind of be super reactionary to. And we were able to move into a space where we can be proactive and start planning instead of playing catch up. We can go, okay, what's coming down the pipeline in a year's time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time, and start using the farm environment plan as a vehicle to have discussions and to look for opportunities, and particularly things that will be coming our farmers' way into the future. And that worked very, very well for us. We were busy doing farm environment plans. KMR, as they form, they say, hey, we need to also be in this proactive space, and looking for a good way or a good vehicle to have discussions on farm. I think they were looking at freshwater farm plans, sediment reduction plans, and what we're doing in those key goals or drivers for KMR, they align quite well. So I think I described that, strong synergies between our programs. Our dairy farmers, as you saw that map on the other side, quite a strong presence in the Kaipara catchment. To date, we have around 523 dairy farms in the catchment, or about 68% of our farms in Northland. And that, when I say Northland, I kind of get caught up, but it's north of the Harbour Bridge. I know that's not the actual region of Northland, but north of the Harbour Bridge, 68% of our farms are there, and it covers around, this is just the platform, about 104,000 hectares, or around 200 hectares per farm. And working in partnership was a good way to be able to leverage the skills, resources, and relationships that both programs or both teams had to progress the work. Talking about our basic partnership agreement, there's a few parts. It's quite simple though. First one was around funding and accelerating FEPs in the Kaipara Harbour catchment. So in 2021, we were busy, but we still had a lot of work to do. I think what I wrote here, we had a lot of FEPs still to do, and working with KMR, we agreed that, hey, if they helped us fund part of the development of an FEP, we could target more in this catchment. We could divert our resources in this catchment, and we could also get some help. We were able to employ another 2 sustainable dairying advisors on the back of this partnership, which definitely helped accelerate the work. If back in 2021, the team was just me, Helen, Mike Mitchell, and Benji, and the target that we had internally to have all farms having FEP by 2025, to be honest, it was going to be a stretch. We were like, oh yeah, it's 2025 is a ways away, but it was going to be hard for us to meet that target in Northland without additional resource. And then with the additional resource, which was Andy, Moritz, and Bridget, basically we're going to come in a season early. So to date, we've only got per STA, I don't know, less than 5 or 10 farm environment plans to do. These are new plans. We still got a body of work where we update and review our plans, particularly our old ones, or where a farmer has done, wants some changes or wants their plan to be updated. By and large, Kaipara KMR has helped us meet that goal as well. The other part of the agreement is to promote and help distribute some of the funding. But it's all based on KMR criteria, so there's no special criteria for dairy farmers or for Fonterra. If a farmer has an opportunity and meets criteria, we can discuss the criteria and build an application that allows for the distribution of funding. Probably one of the key differences between, I guess, working with Fonterra around funding is that we're able to utilize a dairy farmer's farm source account for fund allocation. So I think all, if not all, our dairy farmers have a farm source account that's linked to our farm source stores, and we're able to utilize our financial team to front load the funding. I think if you with a typical KMR application, you get the application, you do the work, and then you get reimbursed. We're able to do that the other way around, where we can put the money up front. Got some benefits, a little bit of risk as well. Benefits being, again, the money's there, the farmer's basically sitting there with the cash ready to do the work. Little bit of risk about front loading it, but to date it hasn't played out. And because it's a farm source account that we have visibility over, there's an opportunity for us to what's the word I like to use? Yeah, to recoup those funds if something happens or doesn't go to plan. We haven't had to do that. I think maybe we've done it maybe one or two times, but it's an agreed one so far. The farmers actually said, gee, something's come up. I think Cyclone Gabrielle spoiled the plans for a few farmers, and they had to say, hey, I'm not prepared to do the work right now. And we've been able to recoup those funds. So that's cool. It's quite a good little benefit that we have in our agreement. And then lastly, we just got, fulfill some reporting obligations. I do a bit of admin in the space, having to manage the details and the records, and sometimes I'm a bit slow. It's a tricky one for me. Spreadsheets, hard work for me. But and then support training. We get invited to some of the KMR training with their field advisors and do promotional kind of work, this sort of work as well. And our partnership started 1 August 2021. We've 2021. I'll just see if there's anything else I wrote on my notes. No, that's it. Thank you, Ben. So we're coming to the end of our 3rd year of partnership. I think our seasons with KMR end 30 June every year, and then we start again. So just some key stats here. So in the Kaipara Harbour catchment, I think, what was it, 523 farms, 498 have an FEP. So we're 95% complete in the Kaipara, and those numbers are probably slightly better now because those numbers come from last month's stats that I kind of put together, and we've been busy in the last month kind of trying to push some of our FEPs and get them done. And of that, 233 have been part funded, half funded by KMR. So that's that fund there has come back to our farm source team to help support to employ our SDAs and to pay for the development of our farm environment plans, which is massive. And then we've also done about 148 fund applications. And so, the numbers there just show that we've been able to fund a ton of waterway fencing and do a whole lot of riparian planting. Again, these numbers are about a month out, so there'll be a bit more than that. But it kind of gives you a bit of a flavour as to the work that we've been able to do as was that 5 of us and probably 6 of us, but I'm not really in the catchment. Again, supporting various training promotional events, and just a little fun fact that just because it's top of mind, the Balanced Farm Environment Award dairy farmer entrants. So since 2022, all the entrants that were in the Kaipara Harbour catchment, they've all been part of or received some KMR funding as well. So it just shows those that are involved in BFEA, they also are aware and taking advantage of the funding that's on offer, which is really great. The next little slide there, or not next slide, the next little point there is that if you're a dairy farmer, you don't have to, we're not the only channel you can work with. You can work direct with KMR. And so we've just received some statistics as well about some of our farmers that have worked direct with KMR, and there's some extra additional statistics there around fencing and planting, particularly around planting, which is really, it's quite a cool number to see, around the 243,000 extra plants. We kind of our team sticks to the small planting jobs, so less than 2,500 stems. It just aligns better with the work that we're doing, kind of sticking to smaller jobs that farmers typically do themselves. And also KMR, got the expertise and the workflows for large planting jobs. So they've picked up a lot of big planting jobs on dairy farms. So yeah, that's just kind of some key stats from our partnership. So just the next set of slides, I'll whip through them. I won't spend too much time on them, but they're just some photos that I've been able to just to snip from some of the sign-off jobs that we've done. So every application, we go back, check the work that's been done, and sign off what's happened. So yeah, you'll see probably a lot of the waterway fencing stuff, and I'll cover it. We're chasing a lot of wet, seepy, springy areas, critical source areas. On our dairy farms, a lot of the larger main waterways have already been fenced off. So the stuff that is left on our farms are typically, marginal areas or areas that the farmers are like, don't get much productivity out of these. They'd be better off retired and, put either, a bit of native regeneration or planting or whatever, but just stocking these sort of areas aren't very productive and they're not good for water quality. So yeah, and our team, we've got hundreds of these sort of photos, which is very satisfying for our team. A lot of the time we're out doing like agreeing and identifying actions and opportunities, but to be able to follow up that conversation with, hey, and there's also some funding on offer from KMR, and to explain what KMR is about, and then to get these outcomes. These are all accelerated. A lot of these actions we'd identify in a farm environment plan. They're things that the farmer would say, okay, I'll get onto that in a year or 2 years, or even kind of tuck them into the nice to do box. But being able to offer them KMR funding on KMR's behalf accelerates this work very quickly, a lot faster than otherwise would. So just this next, I've got just a couple more slides here, but KMR, they complement the work that we're doing and our farmers are doing. I wrote perfectly because it is pretty complementary. Looking at our core role as a sustainable dairying advisor, for those that have been around a while in this space, you'll remember the Clean Streams Accord. That was, come out, I think, around the 2000s. I kind of got into this work around 2008. I was at NRC for 5 years working in the effluent team. So those that have been in the space longer than that, you'll all about this stuff. But it was our industry, our dairy agricultural industry's kind of first formal venture into stock exclusion. The Clean Streams Accord, it was voluntary and involved a lot of self-recording, and it was a good introduction to the benefits, or what stock exclusion was all about. And there were some lessons learned. It didn't go as well as we liked, but definitely a great introduction into what we're trying to achieve. Getting our farmers to think about critical source areas and what's to go with waterways. I mean, prior to that, if you think about dairy farming or any ag stuff in the olden days, it's like, waterways, drains, unfenced, even around effluent systems, we used to just hose down the yard, go straight into there. And, just the evolution of the work over time has been massive. And so that was the Clean Streams Accord. And in around 2012, our industry, we strengthened our commitment to stock exclusion. And then also that was with the Sustainable Dairying Water Accords. That's probably a bit more recent. People probably remember that one a lot more too, as the SDWA, kind of built on the back of the Clean Streams Accord. And then Fonterra, we strengthened our commitment to the Sustainable Dairy Water Accord by making stock exclusion the requirements of the Water Accord as terms of supply in 2013. That's kind of when I got involved at Fonterra. When I was employed at Fonterra, the large body of my work was around Accord waterways, which is what we used to call them. The Accord waterways, they definitely focus mainly on our larger waterways. Roll off the tongue, it was always like a waterway that was carried water all year round, wider than a metre, deeper than 30 centimetres. Often you'll hear, if it dries up, it didn't need to be fenced. And it was a good accord, a lot of work. It was, again, a big driver for our farmers to get into the waterway stock exclusion piece. When it was out, we know there was got a bit of flack because it only focused on the big ones, and from a purely water quality point of view, it was warranted. It didn't capture. It was always a recommendation around the smaller tribs or the gullies or the springs or the little things that typically dried out in a good summer. But thinking back, or when I used to work in that space, it was around water quality primarily, but it also covered things around that we had a bit of media, some bad media coverage around stock and waterways, and they're always our large waterways. But also big piece of work. And if you think about a dairy farm, there is usually a main body of water, a large waterway, either on the boundary or going through the middle of it, or a couple of them, and then a whole lot of smaller ones. And it was a great introduction to our farmers to say, let's get fencing. We had to start somewhere, and our larger waterways were the best ones for our farmers to start on, around mindset change, introducing the topic, and then seeing those tangible changes. Like we had so many conversations, a lot of them quite tough conversations around the why and the how. And as a farmer would put up their fence and just see the change, from what happened on the bank, particularly if they were bordering another farm that didn't fence, they could see what was going on. The bank started to rank up with all sorts of stuff. I know there was a lot of issues around pest plants, and still is, and flooding, but by and large, it gave us a lot of momentum. And all the environmental spaces that come afterwards. So for me, I've been in the role a long time, it was always around effluent for a long time, and then the waterway stuff just accelerated a lot of our farmers, journey in the sustainability or environmental space. Just seeing that tangible change, putting fences up on a large body of water, seeing the changes that were going on, and that kind of set the platform for where what we've been doing post 2015 through to now. But it left a lot of the smaller tributaries, gullies, and the smaller waterways, which are just as if not more important for water quality to be completed. So we had that, and then we moved into farm environment plans, which again based on what we call good or best farming practices. So even though there may not have been a regulatory driver for a certain action, our farm environment plan work gave us the opportunity to talk about, although there may not be a rule, what does good look like? What is the best thing for this piece for the environment, water quality, and have those discussions with our farmers. And by and large, they, if you provide, the opportunity to discuss these things with some time, provide plenty of time, be fair and consistent. Our farmers, they're stewards of the land. They then generally will go, okay, I get this. I may not be able to do it in the next 3 months, but I understand where the importance of these activities. So identifying a lot of these actions in our farm environment plans were our smaller little tributaries and gullies. And then on top of that, we had some changes. We had some central government, local regulatory drivers come on board. The Essential Freshwaters Package in 2020 kind of highlighted again that central government was putting rules in around waterway fencing, which went well over and above, say, what an accord waterway was. And then we got the draft regional plan, all our local regional council plans, which also went into waterway fencing, and again captured waterways that were well over and above, say, what just standard accord waterway was. So all that piling in together with KMR coming on board in 2021 has definitely helped and complements the work that our farmers are doing on farm, the opportunities and actions that we identify in a farm environment plan, and then the regulatory drivers layered on top of that just meant that there's plenty of opportunity. It was front and center on a lot of our farmers' minds. And then, that incentive, hey, here's some funding here, which meant that we accelerated a lot of the fencing work that has happened and is happening into the future. This last little bit down here, I got developing drivers. So there's some developing drivers too. I know KMR, we've it's not just all around waterway fencing. There's a strong planting component, and also around native bush and restoring and protecting and developing new areas for biodiversity. And so, with a lot of this work that's been going on, a lot of our farmers are retiring a lot of marginal pieces of land in and around their waterways, gullies, steep slopes. Basically, a lot of our farmers are figuring out, okay, hey, there's some marginal pieces on farm, and they don't return a lot. And if I retired them, we can manage our stock a lot better, and there's actually a whole lot of water quality, biodiversity benefits there. So a lot of these retired areas are prime for planting, but just cost often we find is a barrier there. There's no real strong regulatory driver around planting as such. A lot of our farmers, they get it. They go, yeah, I'd love to plant these areas, particularly those gullies, and they're very proud of their properties, and they understand, hey man, if I could plant this stuff up. And a lot of our farmers have planted gullies, and I know that they drive past certain properties and they're like, man, that looks mint. And they understand the water quality, biodiversity benefits that come from it. So a lot of our farmers, you don't get much pushback going, oh no, I don't want to plant that. It's really cost is a big barrier. And then future or regulatory drivers, they're not so strong, not like your waterway fencing stuff. Then we all have on top of that the MPS for Indigenous biodiversity that come out in 2023. So that introduced some drivers for riparian planting. It gave some direction for council policy, regulation, and also a bit of recognition. And that's something that we're trying to work on too at Fonterra. Is how do we incentivize or recognise or provide that value for those biodiversity benefits that come, as well as water quality benefits that come from planting or protecting native bush. And also, there's a lot of work that's happening at the moment around carbon sequestration, particularly around riparian corridors, establishing new ones, establishing new bush blocks on steep or marginal pieces of country, and then also the protection of existing native bush. Still early days in that space. We want to be able to recognise that, put some hard value or some dollar figures around that, but it's still something we have to work on. So, but all these things kind of add to, I call them developing drivers to kind of tip the balance from where it be protecting native bush, establishing new bush, or planting up, tip the balance from a nice to do to something like it would be sensible to do, and then eventually to a no-brainer. Like that's kind of where we want to move to, and all these developing drivers are helping them tip that balance. It's not quite there. This is, I guess, our experience on farm. It's not quite there for your I don't know what to call them, your general farmer. I always put out, a bit of a bell-shaped curve. We've got our early adopters, you got those in the middle, and then you got kind of those that are just kind of struggling along. But yeah, we just want to tip that, as that balance kind of tips over time to become a no-brainer, kind of like how the stock exclusion work is. We generally don't have a lot of discussions now around, the why with our farmers. It's in the sensible to do, and working on its space, and then often now it's a no-brainer. And also with KMR and the funding, it's like, yeah, definitely for a lot of our farmers, hey, it's a no-brainer. There's rules and requirements, rules and regs being developed in this space. A lot of our farmers go, okay, yeah, I see that gully. I've always wanted to fence it. Here's some funding. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Let's jump on it. And we've had a lot of return applicants, which is a lot of our work now, being in the role 3 years or partnership 3 years. A lot of the applicants, they're returnees, so they had a crack. They go, okay, let's see how this partnership works. They've had a good experience with one of our SDAs. They've received the funding, done the work, and they're like, that was pretty cool. That was very efficient and quick and painless. There's more work to do, and that they get us involved again. So, which is really, really cool. And I think I've got one more slide. So workflow, yeah. So just very, very briefly covering what it kind of looks like, a KMR application with our team. We're on farm for various reasons, typically around a farm environment plan or a referral, whether it be through KMR or for itself. All our farmers, they typically know who their sustainable dairying advisor is. They'll hear word of mouth or whatever, and they'll give us a call and say, hey, what's up with this KMR stuff? I'm keen to understand more and see if there's any opportunities. So however we end up on farm, we'll identify either a water quality risk, or often now it's an opportunity, particularly if it meets criteria. It's in the Kaipara Harbour catchment. We'll discuss, we'll just discuss with them KMR's value proposition and the application process. We'll agree, or sometimes, if it's a very important thing, require an action, again, meets criteria, discuss it, and if successful, and typically they're successful because we've done the groundwork on the ground, so we're not, if we're out on farm, we're not like, oh, may meet it, may not. We know what meets it. We'll agree to the terms of what needs to happen, and we'll approve the application, and then they do the work, and then we come back, sign it off when the work is completed, and that's typically how it works. Again, we're very proud of our contribution. Our little team, there's only 5 or so of us. We're proud of the partnership that we have with KMR. It's great value. Again, it's very satisfying to be on farm, identify an opportunity or a goal that our farmers have. Talk about it, but not just say, okay, that'd be cool to do and write an action, but to be able to offer on behalf of KMR a funding opportunity, and then to show up 6 months later and see the work done that would otherwise have taken a lot longer to do. That's great job satisfaction for our little team. It gives us variety. I'll be honest, the other sustainable dairying advisors across the country, very jealous of the partnership that we have and the opportunities that we have with KMR to accelerate this work. Whenever we have some of our, our lead team or some of our bosses, I call them bosses, I don't like bosses these days, but they come up, and part of an update to them is that I always chuck in a few slides around KMR and like, this is the cool work that we've been doing, and our leaders, they acknowledge that, making sure that there's plenty of scope in our workflow to continue this work within our KPIs, to make sure that there's a strong component that allows us to put the time in to do this work. And then just build on the back of trust and credibility. We've developed in Northland now sustainable dairying advisory team, been operating in Northland since around 2009. I think the first sustainable dairying advisor was there, and I come in 2013. I think Helen and Mitch come in around 2015, 2016, and Benji's been there a while, and yeah, built some really good relationships with key stakeholders, particularly around NRC, and then after that KMR and others, and yeah, just really grateful for the trust that KMR have and working with us to help deliver this funding and KMR's goals on farm. And by and large, the feedback we get from KMR is they're very happy with our work. So that's always good. We feel good when people are happy with the work that we do on their behalf. And if there's any dairy farmers or anyone associated with dairy farming on the call, if you want to know more, or you go, hey, actually, I want to talk to somebody about this. There's something I may want to fund on farm. You can contact your SDA. Most of our farmers will know who their sustainable dairying advisor are, have their direct dial. But if they don't, you can contact us through our 0800 number. All our farmers know that. That's at 656568. Just ask, I want to talk to my sustainable dairying advisor, and you'll be able to be popped through. Alternatively, give me a call. I'll be able to distribute the work via my number there or an email. Yeah, that's kind of my presentation. And then I guess I'll hand the time back over to Ben to facilitate any questions there may be. I also got a few SDAs on the call. I think I can see Helen and maybe Mike's there. So yeah, if there's a question they want to answer, or even if they want to chime in, they're the team that actually does a lot of the work on the ground. Again, my area is not in the patch, most of it. So yeah, just pass the time back over to Ben.
Thanks, George. Much appreciated. As mentioned, there are some dates we sort of work towards across the sort of planting year. We're looking at the moment into winter 2025, but you can put in applications at any point and we can work through that process. The earlier we can start working with you, the better. There is also a bit of an update on where KMR is at its overall program life to date. We have invested 15.9 million in project value across the Kaipara Moana Catchment, with over 230,000 hours of new work created. We have 603 sediment reduction plans, or Tiaki Plans, completed with landowners, and 105 more plans currently in development. And all up, those projects comprise about 1.7 million plants planted or contracted for planting, 730 kilometres of fencing completed or contracted, covering about 127,000 hectares managed under KMR plans. So there's a bit of work happening, and the team at Fonterra have been fantastic in helping that happen. Now, if you did have any specific questions, feel free to raise your hand and I can turn your mic on, or pop it in the chat and we can go through it there, or as George said, flick him an email or ask one of the sustainable dairying advisors. I'll give everyone a second to type away, but feel free to type something in the chat or pop your hand up and we can answer any questions you may have. Okay, question for George, and then we'll see how we go from there. Do the FEPs identify any natural inland wetlands on farms, i.e. those that fall under the NES freshwater regulation, or is it primarily waterways and planting that tends to be the focus?
Yep. So basically with our FEPs, we'll identify those and everything basically that we can basically identify be beneficial for water quality if they're stock excluded. So we'll capture wetlands or springs or CP areas. One of the things that our farmers will tell us is like the goalposts keep moving, particularly when you think about how we started off with the original Clean Streams Accord into the Sustainable Dairying Water Accord, and then Central Freshwater Regs. If you look over that time frame, everything keeps strengthening, and it's on the back of water quality results that talk about sediment being one of the key contaminants in Northland. And so again, when we go out on farm, or some of the the lines that I have is as we drive around and we assess the farm, I'll often say, because we get caught up, farmers go, oh, it dries out, shouldn't it? Do I have to still fence this? And I will I say, well, I usually tell farmers, hey, whatever this feature is, a spring, wetland, soggy area, drain, we'll chase farm drains is like, I say these two questions that I ask around. And first one is, can it be fenced? Can it practically be fenced? There's some of these features that shoot up into the hills, split off into all sorts of areas, and when you sit there and you try and be practicable and find a solution, it's quite difficult. But I asked the question, first one, can it be fenced? The next question I asked, as I said, will it improve water quality if we exclude stock from this feature, regardless of whether it dries out in the summer or whatever? If stock are in this paddock, or will we improve water quality? And if I say, hey, if it's a yes and a yes, then we should have a plan to fence this feature off. Again, can it be fenced? Will it improve water quality? If it's yes and yes, so it'll capture pretty much anything that any kind of waterway feature, then we should have a goal to fence it off. Because if I think about where the goalposts continue to move, that's the direction it's heading. And I like to kind of let our farmers know that this is the intent. So often even those that work in the land management space, we get caught up in the rule of the reg and what's in and what's out. But when you work in this space a long time and you realize, you always know this thing continuously moves, you're best to focus on what is the intent, what are we trying to achieve. And if it's all around water quality and improving water quality, then helping our farmers have that longer term view around that kind of helps, because I'll be back some stage. And if you've always gone out saying, oh, if it dries up, you don't have to fence it, or the rule captures this but doesn't capture that. If you're intending to be in this space, for a long time, 3-4 years later, you might be going back there, and now you have to kind of eat your words. And I don't like doing that. I like to be kind of upfront and let the farmers know, like, this is where it's heading. This is what the intent is. And by and large, our farmers get that. I haven't had a lot of pushback on that conversation. And then, then we move into the next space. Is okay. So we've identified a lot of features that are yes and yes to these two questions. In terms of where do I prioritize, then I look back at the rules. I say, well, the rules and regs, they target these ones. So in terms of trying to figure out which ones we should approach first, it's a balance between, making sure that they are compliant with any rules and regs, but then also water quality. So it's a balance between going, these are priority waterways because the rule or reg requires it soon or now, and then a balance between, okay, and these ones contributing, to poor water quality a lot more than these ones, and then lining up with what a farmer, what's on his hit list or his priorities. But yeah, we'll target any of those sort of things. We don't identify a lot. I mean, the definition of wetland goes all over the place, and again, that's why I like to stick to those two questions, because if wetlands have some very strong protections, but then you get into what is a wetland on farm, and you start wrapping yourselves in loops. And so I always just stick to, like, will improve water quality, can it be fenced? And but by and large, we don't have a lot of large or typical wetlands on dairy farms. Again, a lot of them have been drained. We've had a lot of removal of them, historically. And then a lot of our water, the Sustainable Dairy Water Accord work actually captured a lot of them too, because they often fed or were part of larger waterway systems, and then they met that definition. They carried water all year round. And they're wider than a metre, deeper than 30 centimetres. So any kind of significant large wetland that was on a dairy farm, they'd been fenced a while ago, and they're quite easy to have a conversation about. Like, our farmers, there's no tucker in there for our cows, no good tucker anyway. Our farmers, they got stuck in there. They were often, it's not a hard sell to say if you come across one, which I guess we would in May as we move into dairy support land. That's some area that we're venturing into as part of our greenhouse gases kind of whole farm profile, is that we'll be moving into that space at some point. I'm confident we'll come across some of these sort of features, but like, again, they're flourishing. They've got native vegetation in there. Where our farmers, their mindset around this sort of stuff, it's not like it was in 2010. By and large, they're like, yeah, I get it. Plan to do it. thanks for kind of, hurrying me up a bit, and then being able to offer some funding in that space if it meets criteria is massive. So, yep, we'll basically chase everything, even farm drains.
Cool, thanks, George. A question from Jack Craw, who is on the KMR governance group, acknowledging the current uptake rate is very good. What, and given that it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, is there anything KMR could do to increase uptake by dairy farmers?
I mean, we're like the uptake, it's pretty quick. It's paced. We're flat out in terms of KMR. I don't know. I'd have to. Yeah, this is my little rock pile. I'm not too sure on the KMR side of the fence. Our side of the fence, we're busy. It complements our work. I mean, ideally we could get a bit like more targeted, or even have more, like have a SDA dedicated to KMR, but it doesn't quite fit our core role. So the reason why our partnership works very well is that it complements our core role. The drivers that Fonterra have, that we have, and it complements the work. We could put more resource into it, but it's just trying to find that balance. I would say though, if one of the strong drivers is the regulatory driver that is looming. We've got central government regulatory drivers, and even in the regional plan, I think I don't know what the terminology is, the operative or whatever, and then even the draft, it was in there. And if there's one thing that would kind of perk up the ears or go, hey, this is a massive opportunity, would be around I guess in the NRC department, is around looking at the rules that are in place now and developing an experienced monitoring team around there, but being practical in that same space. That's probably something I harp on about, is like it's a fine tension between regulatory drivers and being proactive, providing support. But yeah, that will probably be one. Just around, getting I guess, and having a monitoring program around waterway fencing that is fine tuned and humming.
Yep, great. Hannah from Y Connection as well has mentioned she's working in the Araparera and South Head catchments, and would happily talk to farmers wanting to know more about biodiversity. So we'll set her up with Ben and Nikita so she can talk to them. A question from Brooke. Partnership funding opportunity available for organisations that are administering land with multiple ownership. So looking at her portfolio shifted to covering Wairiki, Waikato, Maniapoto and Te Tai Tokerau. So we'd love to connect with people about whenua Māori land and the sort of process in that. So I'm happy to hand over your details, George, to further that conversation, or you can hand it on to one of your team.
Yeah. Great. Sorry, I don't know what the question was, but yeah.
I think it's just she's working at Te Tuma Pairoa and is interested in talking about multiple land ownership and where that kind of sits. So we can sort that out off this one, because that could be a big one.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, if there's no further questions, thank you very much for coming along to today's webinar, and to George and the team for coming along and talking about the wonderful work that Fonterra and KMR have been doing together. I'll send around a link later on in the next couple of days with a link to this webinar on YouTube, and there'll be a little survey for making sure that this webinar continues to be of value to people. So if you could feed that back, that'd be great. If you've got any burning questions or want to know some more, send us an email, hono@kmr.org.nz, and we can either send that through to George and the team or answer it ourselves. Thank you very much. Have an enjoyable rest of your day, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Ka kite anō.